Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I'm going to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, just to finish a conversation we started last week, this was the map I put in last week's video showing you the extent of below freezing temperatures we had experienced so far through October 31st. Well, let's add another week to this and show you through this past Saturday. And because of the colder air that did sweep through early in the last 7 days, we now have places across North Carolina and South Carolina that have experienced their first frost. And yes, there was some damage that was reported here. I did get some reports about some cotton that was damaged here that was late planted and therefore late finishing. And we can see that we got these freezing temperatures pretty far to the south. So I just want to keep you up to speed on that because certainly the temperatures have changed and we are going back over to a warm pattern that's going to likely last for a while. But before we get there, I would like to at least show you that the high pressure that dominated the east coast of the last week is also the same system that kept us quite dry. You can see here looking over the last 7 days, not much precipitation measured at all. But change is coming. We're going to talk about it coming out of the tropics first and then the deep troughs in the western United States that will slowly be pushing across the country, displacing that big high that was sitting in this area and changing things up for us by the time we get to middle of this week. But first, when we look at what happened with Tropical Storm Eta late last night into the early morning hours this morning, it did move across the southern tip of Florida. That would make this the 11th named system that has made landfall in the United States this year. Now, it will be moving out into the Gulf of Mexico here over the next 36 hours. And as it does so, there will still be some big heavy rains moving through parts of Florida. And the reason why I'm talking about it is I got to show you this video. This was shared across a lot of news stations in southern Florida. A guy in a Lamborghini here driving through the floodwaters. And just don't forget, if your car is shaped like a wedge and you drive it through water, it's going to attempt to dive. So just an interesting video I thought you'd get a kick out of. Well, where is Eta going? Well, Eta is expected, as I said, over the next 36 hours to basically end up right about there. And then days 3 through day 5 in the forecast, it will be moving here toward Florida, southern Georgia, before running right along the east coast here as we look out over days really 6 through 10. So as a result, we will have to be on the lookout for the moisture from Eta to possibly increase our precipitation chances and total precipitation amounts, especially as you get closer to the coast in North and South Carolina. Now, how strong is it supposed to be? Well, the National Hurricane Center's early morning update here did suggest this could get up to hurricane strength briefly before becoming a tropical storm, and likely by the time it runs here along the coast, it will still be maybe tropical storm in strength, but likely a tropical depression. So it's going to be the rainfall out of this that we're going to be most concerned with. Now, the early morning update from the National Hurricane Center is suggesting that we still have two other areas to be watching. 50% probability of continued development here in the Caribbean. And they just updated this actually now to a 70% chance of development here. So what this could be, just if we're keeping tabs here, okay, we're through Eta. So after Eta would be Theta and then Iota. That would be the next two Greek letters that we would be discussing here should we name either of these two systems. So this hurricane season is still going and we're going to watch it carefully through the month of November. Now, the bigger changes happening upstream. We have Trough 1 here, Trough 2, and Trough 3. And these features are coming around a very wavy jet stream. And that ridge that you see here, which had been keeping us so, kind of high and dry, will be, being displaced. And so we're going to watch Eta, which is down here, I'll label it with an E, and all of these features coming sweeping across the United States, which are going to change our precipitation and temperature patterns here in the near term. So let's get to it, all right? First, that upper level pattern. Now, this ridge is going to be protective for a little while longer. What I mean is watch the troughs that are out west attempt as best they can to sweep through the midsection of the country, but that ridge hangs on through middle of the week. But as we work our way into the day on Wednesday, here's what's going to happen. This first trough that comes sneaking way up here into parts of Quebec will actually leave a front, and that front will stretch right down through here at the surface. Okay, and along that we will start to draw on the moisture from Eta, which is right here. This is the reflection of Eta in the mid levels of the atmosphere, and start to really increase our precipitation chances once we get into the day on Wednesday. But then what's going to happen is as we go from Wednesday through Thursday and then into Friday, you see the deeper troughs keep cutting into the western United States. And as a consequence, the flow pattern is going to dip south here and then run north there. And that's going to be the main factor that's going to be dominating our precipitation chances here. We're going to have just plenty of open flow coming in, bringing in the moisture. Now, we don't have any of these deep troughs cutting into the Carolinas until we get here, which is next Tuesday. This is November the 17th. And the models are right now trying to forecast that dipping through, which could drop our temperatures back off. But much of the next 15 days will be quite mild, although we do have to watch out for our precipitation chances to really increase by the middle of this week and beyond. But you see the atmosphere keeps resetting with troughs in the western part of the United States, and that is going to be critical for our 15-day temperature outlook, which we'll get to in just a few moments. All right, when do we have our next chance of precipitation? Well, let's look down here at the high-resolution model first. We're not seeing a lot to begin the day on Monday through Tuesday. It won't be, as you see here, until Wednesday morning that front finally starts to push its way over toward the Carolinas. So if anything, just scattered showers coming from the east to onshore here until then. But you can see as Wednesday gets here, our chances for seeing some thunderstorms starts to increase as this frontal boundary pushes through. So let's flip over to the European model to see that all take shape. Now you've seen already through this point, Wednesday morning. By the time we get into Wednesday afternoon and evening, okay, so remember the low I told you way up here in Quebec? There's the front. And what's happening is this. There's a high over Illinois and a high here almost over Bermuda. And the flow is coming around this one, supplying the moisture from this direction. The flow is going around this high like this, providing the lift. And between the two is where we're expecting to see, once we get to Wednesday, heavier precipitation spreading across the Carolinas. This is Wednesday night, getting into Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon and evening. And what happens is when you're sandwiched between two high pressure cells, they don't move quickly. Now we have the effect of Eta pushing its moisture right here into this area as well by the time we get to Thursday evening. And when that finally clears out, it's going to be Friday morning and afternoon. So that's when it's going to move out of here. But watch what happens as I go from now Friday night into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon and evening. We once again pull up some more moisture, possibly increasing our precipitation chances in the day on Saturday. And you do notice the next system that's kind of waiting in the wings here in the Corn Belt. Well, that system then pulls on through, see it there, going up toward, basically where, Ontario and Quebec meet. And we could pull another front through this area over the weekend, increasing our precipitation chances. So that's why things really change once we get beyond the middle of this week. So putting it all together, we're relatively dry through about this point. And that would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then you can see we're adding to that a little bit over the weekend. So how much precipitation is that? Well, if we zoom in here and add up everything between now and next Sunday evening, the chances for widespread 1.5 to 3+ inches of rain is really setting up here across North and South Carolina, especially as you get into the Appalachian Mountains and right here as we get out into the coastal plain from the Piedmont. That's where I'm really seeing the precipitation starting to add up. What about day 10 through 15? Now, day 10, you see the trough cutting in through here, but flatter flow at this point across North Carolina, which means we're going to see a drier pattern. And the whole thing starts to reset with a trough up here over Alaska by the time we get out to day 15. So let's see where that then goes by looking at the week 2 precipitation patterns. As I said, the flattening out of that pattern says, hey, week 2 in both models is showing up drier as the pattern resets. Doesn't mean it won't precipitate at all, but it's at least showing up drier. Okay, from there, let's talk temperatures. Max temperatures first. Now, the country is split right down the middle with where the deep trough is west, keeping things cold, and the ridging is still protecting things over the east. And you can see the temperatures today, a lot of mid to upper 70s across North Carolina. By the way, back here where I'm from, we're going to be seeing temperatures in and around the Great Lakes that might be upwards of 30 degrees warmer than normal. Well, playing forward from there, this is Tuesday's high temperatures, another very warm one for this time of year across North Carolina, getting into Wednesday and Thursday. Now you notice, even though we're bringing in the precipitation at the end of the week, we still stay on the warmer side of things. And the cold air just never really gets to us here in the Carolinas. Friday, very normal. Even into Saturday, that might be our only cool day, to be honest with you, as we look out here over the next 6 to 7 days, because by Sunday, we're back over toward normal. Okay, what about going beyond that? Well, the day 5 through 10 time period, remember I said the cold's going to try to reset in these deeper troughs, and both models are picking up on that. So we tend to see a few degrees above average in terms of our temperatures here across parts of the southeast to the mid-Atlantic. And then out to 11 to 15 day, much of the same. The cold air is going to be sourced in this area, and with the jet stream pattern doing something a bit like that, we're tending to see, near average to warmer than average conditions. Now, thinking about that, I start to ask myself, how long is this going to last? And I want to give you a brand new long-range update now. To get us set up for that, though, I want to just get a quick recap. This is where we look at the statewide average temperature ranks on the left and the statewide average precipitation ranks on the right. The time period, January of this year through October. Now, we can see that much of this year has been a warm one for us. We currently rank at 123 out of 126 years right here. And it's been wet. It is currently our second wettest such time period, January through October, on record, with our neighboring state, Tennessee, having its wettest. Now, thinking about that as the setup, yes, multiple tropical systems have, of course, influenced this. But going forward, adding more rainfall to that, which we just saw, is going to continue to keep these numbers quite high. We do not have drought to even consider here in this part of the Carolinas or the mid-Atlantic. All that drought is west. But we need to think about what this drought in the west really means for us across the southern tier of the United States. Before I get to that, though, let's look at the difference between October and the beginning of November. You see, in October, the cold air kept sweeping through, and it really got to about that far south. In other words, we spent much of the month of October warm here. But November has brought a pattern change. In the first 9 days of November, well, we know what that did. I showed you at the beginning with that cold air outbreak. But the warmth has really spread back to our west. Are we going to continue to see these swings in temperatures? Well, we saw how much of the country is going to get some broad-scale warmth in the near term. But like I said, I want to turn this out into a long-range forecast. So how good are our models at long-range forecasting? Well, I'll just make a point to let you know that this is at the forefront of atmospheric sciences. How do we make long-range weather forecasting better? Because issued on October 5th, the outlook for the month of October featured cooler weather here and warmth in this area. What we got was a lot of cool air inside that wedge, as you can see here. And the warmth was in the southeast and the warmth was in the west. So even just a month ago, the long-range models didn't pick up on this very well. So I just want you to know that what I'm about to show you, this is something that everybody struggles with when it comes to forecasting. But here's the new data. The European model, December 2020 through February 2021. What the models are forecasting is deep troughing here. I'll put a low over it. They're keeping the jet stream doing something like this with a strong northerly branch. They then expect an Ohio River Valley storm track that all kind of meets into this part of the Northeast and Canada. The problem at this point is that the models are not picking up on any sort of a strong subtropical jet stream feature. So we continue to see them forecast this region dry. Now, when I say dry, what I mean here is just drier than normal. I don't mean that it's going to be dry all winter. And remember, this is just what the models are forecasting. It is picking up on a mild pattern for much of the lower 48 for this winter, with the only cold air really kind of coming out of the troughs digging through the Canadian prairies into the northern tier of the United States. Once again, this doesn't mean we won't have cold air. And I'll tell you how we'll get it, by the way. If we have interseasonal fluctuations or subseasonal fluctuations, especially in the polar vortex and the North Atlantic Oscillation, that will send us over into time periods where it's really cold. Let me explain. Much of this winter will continue to be dominated by the La Nina. That's our biggest factor right now controlling this winter forecast. And the latest model projections keep that La Nina around and in fact push it all the way through January before they start to see it waning. Now remember, that La Nina is what's setting up the pattern. These subseasonal features like the Arctic Oscillation, better known as the Polar Vortex, or the North Atlantic Oscillation, which tells us if we're getting big ridging in the North Atlantic or troughing in the North Atlantic, those factors are not forecastable weeks in advance. They just aren't. We only have a 2-week horizon on figuring them out. And those are the things that often determine what what our memory of a winter will be. So let me explain a little further. Right now, this is the position and behavior of the polar vortex. A lot of the really cold air, as you can see, is over here in this area. Now we're looking here deep in the atmosphere, up in the stratosphere, at where the reflection of the polar vortex is. It's quite strong, but that low sea ice concentration here in the Chukchi Sea is, I think, influencing this. Now this is what's making this the source region for all those troughs. But the polar vortex, as I said, right now is strong. Now remember this, it's when the polar vortex is weakened that we get the big colder outbreaks. And how you see that is by looking at this graphic over here on the right. The stronger values are up high, the lower values are down low. So we're currently sitting here, and what we're going to watch out for this winter is anytime the polar vortex gets disrupted and shot way down like this, because usually in the following 3 to 6 weeks we have a massive disruption in temperatures somewhere across the northern hemisphere. Right now the polar vortex is not the dominating factor, but I just want to let you know what I'll be watching as we go into winter. What about the MJO? Well, the MJO has been over here in phase 8 and is forecast to come into phase 1 and 2. Now we can correlate this tropical feature with our historical weather patterns. And phase 1 and 2 tend to bring a lot of colder air out of this area and let it down into the western United States and into the central US. You see, the MJO is going to be doing that. But the thing about the MJO here in the near term, and by the way, those temperature patterns over there on the left mimic what we're going to see in the next 2 weeks very, very well. But the MJO might get stalled out right here in phase 2. And we're seeing that from our long-range models. When you look at this map, remember, this is going forward in time. And these colors I'm drawing the arrow over represent where the air is easily going to rise. So it's here and here over phases 1, 2, and partly into 3. Large-scale subsidence in this area. Now, why I'm showing you this detail is because normally the MJO moves. In other words, these areas move across the diagram at a diagonal like that. But the MJO right now is kind of persistent, and it's almost blocked up here in phase 1 and 2. By the way, the bad news is this is what's going to continue to let the tropics, especially the Caribbean, remain active. We don't have anything suppressing the motion over it here in the near term. Okay, with that as a backdrop, I then want to take you from North America, which we just kind of explained the seasonal and then sub-seasonal factors we're going to watch, and now let's go to South America right here. To finish this up, over the last week, southern Brazil, getting into Argentina, was very dry, with the exception of just yesterday some precipitation that moved through right there into Argentina. But it wasn't widespread, just some scattered showers. Why we bring this up is because while much of northern Brazil, right in through here, made some rapid planting progress in the last 15 days, southern Brazil has been very dry, and parts of Argentina have been dry, with the exception of Buenos Aires, which is right in through there. Now, why we keep that in mind is because over the next week, this area is going to get quite a bit of rainfall. So we're going to make up for that spot that was dry in the last week. But notice this region in through here, Cordoba, Santa Fe, getting toward Buenos Aires, is looking dry in the near term, and also dry into week 2. And why I stress this is because as we think about South America and its production of corn and soybeans and cotton, I'm going to be concerned about this region and this region for drought development. This is the latest outlook for December, January, and February from the European model for South America. While they're keeping wet into this area, which more than likely means that they'll see their big bean numbers, that 132 million metric ton number we keep hearing tossed around, that's certainly a possibility. But on the fringe states to the north, this could hit safrinha corn and cotton. And in Argentina, I'll put an A in it here. In Argentina, I am concerned about potential drought development this winter. That would be typical of a La Nina. So a bit of an extended forecast video for you today, but I wanted to tell you what I was watching in the longer term. Hope you found it useful and informative. I can't wait to talk to you again next week. Have a good one. Thanks.